2024 has been an incredible year for the Pokemon market, not only in sealed, but also in the single cards. We've seen some of the biggest money cards come out of this year in 2024, from the Pikachu to, of course, the Bubble Mew as well. There's been some absolutely incredible cards and high value cards released so far this year. Well, I say so far this year, this whole year, because we're at the end of the year. But 2025, right? We don't know what's going to be coming out in 2025. But today we're going through a bunch of cards, which I think we should keep an eye on, right? Going into 2025 and potentially expect to see some real big booms and gains from some of these cards. Of course, when we look back at the Sword and Shield era, a lot of cards and the big top cards made some serious gains this year. Big old arts like the Giratina, of course, pretty much anything from Evolving Skies went up. The Lugia, the Charizard, a whole bunch of stuff went up pretty high. A Gengar as well, and continue to grow. So today we'll be looking at a bunch of cards from Sword and Shield era and Scarlet and Violet era, and, you know, kind of having a little bit of a prediction of, you know, whether or not they'll boom really in 2025, just to keep a close eye on them, because they have real good potential. So let's get into it. Okay, first things first, we're talking about the Umbreon EX from Terrestrial Festival. Now, of course, this is the big Umbreon, the big chase card, the just incredible, right? All of the evolutions in this set are amazing. Everyone is really enjoying Terrestrial Festival right now, as to be expected. And, you know, this kind of gives me Eevee Heroes feels, right? Eevee Heroes was a huge successful set. It had multiple reprints, and it continued to grow and just become incredible. Now, I would say it's a lot easier to get these cards in this set than it is from Eevee Heroes, of course. But that still doesn't mean that these cards will not do great, right? I think they're going to do really good. And I think this Umbreon's going to do really good. Right now, you're looking around about $300 for this Umbreon, which is roughly about right. PSA 10 is $700. That's actually quite interesting. Now, here's the thing. Where do I see it go? Now, with Japanese, it's quite tricky to kind of have a feeling and a vibe, as it were, of where cards will go in the future. But I do really rate the high-class sets. And look, it's an Eevee set. Yeah, there's evolutions. They're going to do well. They always do, especially Umbreon, right? So, you know, this is the Japanese version. You know, of course, we don't know about prismatic evolutions. We don't know what the pull rates are going to be like. But I think that one as well, when it comes in English, it's just going to be maybe bigger than the Pikachu from Surge and Sparks. Who knows? But this Umbreon is doing bits, right? And I think it's going to be a very good one. Yes, it's dropped quite a bit since its release, because just the high volume of packs that people are opening. But I still think this is going to be a big money card, big ticket card. Where would it be in the future? Who knows, right? But I do expect it to climb and bounce back once people moved over to English, right? As soon as people open up English, I think that because of the somewhat scarcity of Prismatic, because it's going to be quite tricky, I think a lot of people are going to go back to Terrestrial Festival just to try and appreciate and get hold of these cards and these artwork, which I think would potentially help the card as well. But we'll have to wait and see. But this one is definitely one to look out for. Next up, we got the Gardevoir from Day and Fates. Now, we saw the Bubble Mew boom. We saw the Charizard bounce back and now is climbing up to nearly its all-time highs. So, what does that mean for the Gardevoir? I mean, the Gardevoir is the third most expensive card in the set. It is absolutely incredible. The artwork's fantastic. And the price has been climbing. So, this one could be one to look out for in 2025. So, we got here around $50. Pretty much across the board, 50, well, actually ranging from $50 up to $70. PSA 10 though has been climbing. It is, you know, $180 nearly, which is pretty good in a PSA 10. And when we take a look at the raw price, we can see that it is starting to climb. It did do a dip over the past 6 months, went from $50 and went down to as low as just below $40, and is now starting to see its uptick, and which is pretty good, right? And I think this could be, hey, we could see this breach $100 raw down the line and potentially see a PSA 10 rise and become, you know, a $300 card. So it'd be interesting to see where the Gardevoir goes. Keep an eye out for this one, because Day and Fates is making moves. 2025 could be the year that we see this card grow like the other two, and I still think the other two will grow as well. I do. The Bubble Mew and the Charizard, I think, especially Charizard now, I think we'll start to see some gains. The Bubble Mew's cooling off a little bit, but still, you know, around $250, $300 is pretty insane. But yeah, Gardevoir is probably going to be up next. Next, we got a huge card, which is the EV from Twilight Masquerade. Now, of course, we have the Greninja from Twilight, just, you know, over $300, just running off on its own to the sunset. This one is around $60 raw, We're looking at 210 in a PSA 10. Not too bad, but it has dropped quite a bit in a PSA 10, but it's slowly trickling back up, right? We did see a drop to as low as 150, but it is slowly going back up from that all-time high at nearly 400, right? Makes sense. But the raw price, right? When we take a look at the raw price for this card, and it's doing relatively well, right? It was around $50. It peaked up to about 70. Then it did drop back down to that 50 or below 50, and is now trickling back up towards that 70. This is, I think, the third most expensive card in the set now. I think it literally goes the Greninja, Carmine, and the Eevee. I think Eevee is going to be an absolutely just top-notch card, especially with all the hype around Prismatic and with Terrestrial Festival. I think, looking at any other evolutions, keep an eye on them, guys, because they might start shifting upwards when we go into next year. So this one, in the past, I predicted that this would be the second most expensive card in Twilight. At this rate, it could well be. Walking Wake is up next from Temporal Forces. Now, I mentioned this in a stream not too long ago. Someone asked me, like, Jace, what do I think is a card we should look out for from Temporal? And I was like, I kind of feel like it's the Walking Wake. So this is a card that I'm going to have a guess that will boom in 2025. Now, the Raging Bolt Long Neck Boy is currently the most expensive card in the set. Beautiful artwork, but it is a playable card. And I think that does have an impact on the value of the card. Maybe when it's no longer playable, it's kind of like cycles out, then you might see Raging Bolt go down. But we have started to see a bunch of the special illustration rares in Temporal start climbing. Iron Crown is slowly bouncing back up from its all-time high and from its all-time low, because it went up to $100 and it dropped by like 50%, and now it's trickling back up. Walking Wake is the third most expensive card in the set. We're looking around between $50 and $60 raw, $135 in a PSA 10, but it is starting to make gains, right? Even in PSA 10, it did drop below, nearly $90, and now we can see pushing up to $140. Then when we look at the raw price, we can see it's now making gains. 6 months ago, it was about 54, then it went down to around about 46, 47, and now it's up to in the mid-60s. Like I said, I do expect this to climb. Could it overtake the Iron Crown and potentially Raging Bolt? I don't know. I think the Raging Bolt will fall, potentially, but we'll have to wait and see. But I do think the Walking Wake is good, and keep an eye on this one, because Temporal, booster boxes get more expensive, pull rates are tough, large set. It kind of has a bit of a perfect storm for this one. And again, it's kind of a fan favorite, right? The Legendary Beasts, people love the Legendary Beasts. So for me, I think it's pretty cool. Next, we're going to Paldea Evolved. We got the Raichu coming in. And now, I think this one's a big one. I do. Mainly because you look at the rest of the set, and things are making moves across the board in Paldea Evolved. Of course, the Magikarp has now broke $200. Iono's sitting around 50. Tyranitar's sitting around that 35, 40. And same with this one. This one's been around 35 or so recently. 200 in a PSA 10. That's really good. And if we look, it's bounced back a little bit from its PSA 10 price, from 170 up to 200, which is pretty good. And then when we look at the raw price, it has dropped. Now, I actually think that's a good thing, because it means it has real potential to bounce back and grow. But I do think this is going to be a potentially good one, tough to pull as well. So, I think that might have an effect. Tyranitar's a little bit more expensive than this, but not by much, and that one has fallen as well. So yeah, I think Raichu could be one that we could look out for, especially from a set like Paldea Evolved. It's really hard to get hold of Paldea Evolved now. Booster boxes are getting pretty expensive. So yeah, overall I do think it's pretty good. Next we've got the Zardy Boy from Obsidian Flames. Now Obsidian Flames is actually moving upwards. Sealed product is doing pretty well. Some of the single cards in the set are also doing pretty well. And I think this is one to keep an eye on. It's Charizard, Big Boy Zard. But look at the price, right? Raw price is anywhere between $50 to $70. But in a PSA 10, it's over $330. Look at this PSA 10. It was sat at just over 200, and then recently it's just absolutely boomed. We look at the raw price as well, and we started to see that the Charizard is now climbing. 6 months ago, it was about a $45 card. Then it dropped to nearly $40, and now we're looking at, mid 50s. Very, very good. It is climbing. It is doing well, and a huge PSA 10 card. So yeah, Obsidian Flames is getting more expensive, and pull rates are pretty easy. So pulling this Charizard might not be that difficult, and you can pick up one raw, for around $50 to $60. But the PSA 10 potential is massive. Next, we've got a duo. First off is the Squirrel from Stellar Crown. Now, you look at the Charmander, which is the Obsidian Flames promo. Of course, the Pokemon Center version is like ridiculously high, but even just the normal promo for an ETB is doing pretty well. Squirrel, beautiful card, absolutely amazing. And, you know, it's doing really well, right? Stellar Crown across the board, a lot of the cards are falling in value. It's a relatively easy set to complete, and it's everywhere to find at the moment. So we look at this, we're looking at about a $40 to $50 card raw, but that PSA 10, $200 is massive. And it has dropped. I mean, it was over $300, and it has fallen quite a bit ever since in a PSA 10. When we look at the raw price, it has been very, very steady, sitting around that mid-40 range for pretty much most of the time, but it is actually trickling slightly upwards, especially on TCG Player. So for me, this is definitely one to look out for. Squirrel, huge fan favorite. Like I said, goes really well with the Charmander that already exists from Obsidian, and I think this is the second most expensive card in the set. It kind of makes sense. It's that cool. Then of course we've got the Bulbasaur to kind of go with it. This one as well doing relatively well on the bit of the cheaper side. We're looking around 30, high 30s to 40s on average for the Bulbasaur. I'm looking at 166 in the PSA 10, so a little bit less than the Squirrel, but still holding somewhat of its value there in a PSA 10. But then when we look at the raw price, it has fallen a little bit in the market price since its release, but it's pretty much stayed quite steady. I mean, TCG Player has taken a while to get up to where it is now to match the rest of the market, but this is going to be a very, very good card with the Squirrel in the future from Stellar Crown. And then finally, we've got another duo. We got the Leafeon V Star coming in from Crown Zenith. Now, again, similar to the EV from Twilight Masquerade, I think pretty much anything EV, keep an eye out for, right? Any evolutions, keep an eye out. Even like Brilliant Stars, it's got a lot of evolutions in that. Keep an eye out for that as well. But the Leafeon V Star from Crown Zenith is making gains, right? Seal products getting more expensive, hard to get hold of. And on top of that, a lot of the cards in the set have gone up in value. Giratina's like 130, 140 now. So yeah, they're really making moves. This one raw you can pick up for roughly around $30, and PSA 10 $80. So not hugely valuable in a PSA 10 compared to some of these other cards that we have seen, but it is, you know, somewhat making a bit of a bounce back in a PSA price. But let's look at the raw price. The raw price is trying to make a bit of a comeback, right? We've got here, it was in the mid 30s, and then it dropped all the way down to the low 20s, and is now starting to climb up and going back up towards that $40 range. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one moving forward. Like I say, any evolutions are great right now, and this is definitely one of them. And then finally, we've got the Glazon V Star, my favorite of the two. You know, look around $20 to $30 raw, even though the price is a bit all over the show. And then we've got $78 in a PSA 10, which, you know, again, similar to Leafeon, not too bad. Has started to bounce back a little bit in a PSA 10, which is, you know, pretty good news. And then we look at the raw price, right? The raw price is now starting to also bounce back. It was, you know, around $30, then it dipped to the low 20s, and now it's starting to come up and hit the 30s. So yeah, overall, this one, again, follows the same rule for the EV from Twilight, and of course, the V-Star of Leafeon as well. But this is a beautiful one. Crown Zenith getting tougher. It's an evolution. It could see some good gains in 2025. So there you have it, guys. Those are just some cards which I think we can keep an eye on. Of course, there's a load of other cards which I didn't cover in this video, but I do think these are definitely some which I'm keeping an eye on. And you know, anything evolution, it's going to do really well. And I think we're going to start seeing more gains happen across the board. And Terrestrial Festival, keep an eye out for that set. If people aren't getting enough Prismag to open, people will go to the Japanese set and open up more there. So I think that Umbreon will do very well in the future. And I think, you know, we're going to see some real big gains, especially in the Scarlet and Violet era in 2025. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some real big heavy climbers in the future. If you made this far in the video and you've enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button and make sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content. And let me know your thoughts down in the comments on these cards, or any other cards do you think we should keep an eye on in 2025? Which ones do you think are going to boom and go to the moon? I think EV is key. Anything evolution is going to be really good in 2025. So yeah, keep an eye on those ones. But that is it from me, guys, in today's video. If you want more Pokemon content, make sure to click the video on screen, and of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You guys are legends, and I'll see you in the next one.